welcome back. This is the final round of 2023's Carolina XC season, and I thought I got an okay start, and things seem to be going okay until right about here, when I decided to just take a quick break. Luckily, the bike stayed running, and I was able to hop back on it, but now I was way behind. I was trying to keep up with Cooper. Me and him were really close in points coming into this last race, so I was trying really hard to maintain third in points. So at this point, I knew I was behind. I knew I needed to push to catch up. So I was really trying my best. And we'll see how that plays out here soon. But yeah, it was a beautiful day. 72 degrees, I think, is what the high ended up being, which is crazy when you've been racing in 50-degree weather all winter. And quite honestly, I wasn't ready for it. It's funny how much of a difference 20 degrees can make. Yeah, here I am trying to keep up with this guy here. Actually trying to get around this guy here that got around me when I went down. No sand track, as you can tell, unfortunately. Seems like the last half of this season was nothing but sand. But hey, the only way to get better at it is to ride in it or race it. So we're just gonna keep doing it until we get good at it, I guess. Coming into the woods here, it wasn't very tight, but it was a little windy. I was hoping I was going to be able to make a move on this guy somewhere around in there, but didn't get the chance. Had this nice open section here in the back, but it was kind of sketchy coming into these trees after that long straightaway. And you'll see later somebody else fell victim to that. Managed to get around that guy there, finally. Felt like I was getting somewhere. I was hoping I was going to be able to catch up. This guy in front of me stalls his bike. Paddle, 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 paddle. Here, I was really trying to push. Honestly, I was riding a little bit above my skill level. So you'll see I start doing some silly stuff, like nearly losing the bike and things like that. This line here to the left. No, that was a really hard one. So there's a line to the left that was so much better, but yeah, you see there, I nearly dropped the bike. There's a line to the left back there that's way better, but I ended up like missing it a whole bunch and taking the line to the right, which was much slower. At this point, I still feel like I have a chance, still trying to catch up. I honestly really liked the track. It was a lot of fun. There's a hill in the back that going down I didn't like so much, but going up the hill was really fun. There's like a little step in the middle of it. It was a lot of fun to go up. Clip the tree there a little bit. Yeah, so this is the hill I was talking about. Going down this was a little, I didn't like it too much. Wrong gear, I guess. Too lazy to gear down. Yeah, this is the hill I was talking about. It's got this little step right here in the middle of it. And if you hit it, you can send it over the top of it. I think I only did it like once, but it was a lot of fun. I think it was right about here. I remember pretty clearly that something started to feel off. Something was right. Not with the bike, with me. I was feeling a little funny. Wasn't quite sure what it was yet, but still pushing, still trying to catch up. Not sure how far I was behind everybody else at this point. Probably pretty far. Funny how one little mistake like that can put you so far behind. It being a sand track, it did get pretty rough, especially towards the end with the when that sand gets dug out and exposes their roots. It just, there's nothing you can do about it, and it happens so quick with the sand. This was the only really muddy spot, just a little dip that had some moisture in it. So I'm pretty sure that guy in front of me right there was actually the next guy in my class. So I was actually right behind him. So close to him. If only I could have just went around him. But yeah, by this point I was really starting to feel it. Something wasn't right. Oh, I did get around that guy. I thought he stayed. Oh, I think he passed me back later. That's what it is. But yeah, I was really starting to feel it at this point. Something wasn't right with my stomach. My stomach was like, it was like in a knot. It didn't feel good. I was still pushing at this point though, trying, as you can see. I really like this wide open back section. It was a lot of fun. There are a lot of different lines to these trees that kind of got burned in. Coming up the end of the first lap, there's this nice like left turn where everybody was kind of watching. It was a lot of fun. It was like a little sandy, bermed up turn. But yeah, it was here that I knew for sure something wasn't right. So basically, and I don't know if it was the heat or if it was what I ate that morning or a combination of the two or something completely unrelated. It may have been related to me pushing really hard at the beginning of that lap, trying to catch up and just overexerting myself. But I felt like I had to puke. Like it was bad.
Alright? My stomach's bothering me. It's like I'm about to puke.
So I was doing my best. I was trying to drink water to see if that would kind of help calm my stomach down. And I had basically stopped pushing at that point, and I just rode out the rest of the race. Wasn't even really putting any effort in here. You see, I'm sitting. This is right after the race. I was sitting there waiting. I was expecting I was going to throw up. Fortunately, it never came up. But that first moto was basically an unmitigated disaster. Like, I finished pretty much last. But anyway, on to the next moto. I went back to the truck in between, kind of cooled off in the AC, drank some water, and I was feeling a whole lot better for the second moto. So I was ready to at least put in one good moto. Off to another pretty decent start, I felt like. Didn't get hung up on that first corner this time, thankfully. And actually managed to get around this corner without eating some dirt. So I was behind Cooper, but not by too much at this point. I could see him. He's 2 bikes ahead of me there on the Kawasaki. Felt like I was at least going to hopefully be able to catch up with him, or at least keep him in sight. Of course, that didn't last long because he's already pretty much gone. So you might be able to hear it, and I had kind of been dealing with it the last few races, but if you listen, the bike isn't running right. It's really stuttery down low. I don't know if you can hear it. It's really, yeah, it's just really stuttery until you get onto the pipe. It's not running right. And at the time, I didn't really know what was going on with it. It all started after the second day of Chicken House 2. The next moto after that, and I forget what that track was called, it fouled a plug that first day. And then when I raced it that day, after swapping the plug out, it didn't quite seem like it was running right. And then the second day, it did the same thing again and fouled the plug, and luckily I was able to find the plug. I missed the moto, of course. But again, it wasn't quite running right. Something was wrong. Something was off. And I was just chalking it up to it was time to do the top end. But in reality, at some point, and I'm thinking it was Chicken House 2, the bike actually ingested some sand. And the piston and the rings took a hit. Like, I'll put some pictures up on the screen here, but the piston itself was really pitted, and the rings were worn right there. And here you can see the bore actually, it looked really bad, but it actually wasn't. There wasn't really any damage. It was more just like a mark, more than anything. But yeah, that's basically why it was running so poorly. So I was really worried I was gonna have to send my cylinder off and get it replated, and I wasn't gonna have enough time to do that before the start of the Mid-East season. So I was really concerned I was gonna miss the first round of Mid-East. Luckily, I've got some really nice friends. One of them even offered to let me borrow his bike because he wasn't going to make it, which was very nice of him. But thankfully, I took it to a local mechanic, and we looked at it together, and he kind of agreed with me that even though the mark was there, you couldn't feel it at all with your finger. Like, you could run your finger across it, and it felt perfectly fine. It was just, what I think is, it was just where the combustion gases were blowing past the rings. It kind of just left a dark spot on the inside of the cylinder. So what I did was, and you're not supposed to do this, but I took a hone and ran it through the bore a couple times just to kind of clean it up, and then I already had a new piston, so I put a new piston in it, and of course new gaskets and everything, put it back together. And I will say I've ridden it for about an hour yesterday. I rode it, and then I rode it around a little today, and it's running so much better. Night and day difference. But yeah, that's kind of the whole backstory there about why my bike was just running kind of crappy. Unfortunate that it happened, and I wish I would have called it. I don't even know, honestly, how it might have ingested sand, because every time I change the air filter, I always look to see, like I look on the inside of the filter and I look on the inside of the intake boot to see if there's any like evidence of debris getting through the filter, and never once did I ever see anything like that. Oh, by the way, there's Cooper. Pretty interesting. So at this point, I was super pumped because I had passed him, but I was really worried that he was going to catch up to me. So you'll see here, I start pushing really hard. Really hard. Trying to just keep ahead of him. And that was pretty much the game for the rest of this moto, as I was really nervous that he was going to be right on my tail at any point. So I was trying my best to just push, but not so much that I made myself sick again. I was a little concerned about feeling bad again, but I was pushing as much as I felt like I could. But yeah, it was a little anxiety-inducing knowing that he could be behind me at any point in time. But we'll see how it plays out here. I'm not gonna give away the ending. That dip right there got really bad. Anyway, back to what I was saying earlier. I never did find any evidence that debris had gotten into the intake, but I can only assume at some point that's what happened because of the damage to the piston and the damage to the rings. It's obvious something got in there. I did check the oil pump as well. I was thinking, actually my buddy mentioned it as well when I told them about it, just to make sure it wasn't like a oil starvation thing where it wasn't getting enough two-stroke oil, but oil pump's working perfectly fine. Not a problem with it, so it wasn't that. That root right there was so awful. If you didn't like give it a little gas to hop over it or dip to the left and go around it, it would throw your front to the left really hard. If you weren't ready for it, man, it wasn't good. This rut right here got a little weird too. It's interesting how when I'm sitting down on the bike, it looks like I'm going a whole lot faster than it does at the same speed when I stand up. When I stand up, things look slower. Just something I've noticed watching so much of my own footage back. Fortunately, despite me really pushing to keep ahead of Cooper, my stomach issues never did come back, so I'm not sure what triggered it. I'm thinking it was just a combination of me pushing so hard and the heat, just not being used to it. I don't know. The body's weird. It does weird things sometimes. It responds in odd ways. Now look at this, coming in to sign in and oh, how embarrassing. Or not sign up, start line, finish line, whatever. You know what I mean. So anyway, skip ahead here to the beginning of my last lap, fourth lap I think it was. Did not get hung up there that time. Thankfully, redeemed myself. So here I pretty much wore myself out trying to push. Really tired at this point. Still doing everything I can though to keep ahead. I hear a four-stroke behind me here, and I was thinking, oh, this is it, it's going to be Cooper, and fortunately it wasn't. Some other guy. Tucked the front in the sand there. So I don't know if you remember earlier I talked about this area being kind of sketchy, and sure enough somebody got hurt. You can see here on the right my buddy Pat Rica stopped to help him, but unfortunately I think the guy ended up, I think they said he broke his leg or something, so pretty awful, unfortunate, but anyway, I guess that's just part of the sport. So at this point I hadn't seen Cooper since I passed him, and I'm feeling pretty good about that. But I'm still a little paranoid he might show up at some point. But what I didn't know is what actually happened is his rear brakes went out on him. So he went down a few times trying to push without rear brakes, and then eventually just realized that he wasn't going to be able to push that hard without rear brakes. So he said he kind of slowed up just to keep from hurting himself. So, yeah. Basically, it was a freebie. I didn't have to push at all. I could have just rode at a normal pace and probably stayed ahead. But, hey, conditioning. It's what I need to be doing anyway. So for those of you paying attention, you may have noticed Cooper beat me the first moto. I ended up beating him this moto due to his rear brakes. So where does that put us? Now keep in mind, going in, I was in third place in points and he was in fourth, and we were exactly 1 point apart. So it was very close. You can really hear that stutteriness. I don't know how else to explain it. It's just like cracking the throttle. It was really stuttery, but you can hear it real good there. Honestly, I'm surprised it ran as good as it did with how bad the side of the piston was. Like it was chewed up. So there it is. End of the second moto and end of the season. So how did we stack up? First moto, of course, pretty much dead last. The guy below me only did one lap. Unfortunately, that's just the way that played out. Not much I could do about that. Cooper got fourth. Second moto, we traded. I got fourth, and Cooper ended up seventh. So where does that put us? Well, it put us in a tie. Overall I finished 32nd for the day. Not the best. But anyway, as I was saying, it put us in a tie. But unfortunately, Cooper had more higher place finishes than I did, so he ended up getting third, and I ended up fourth for the season. Unfortunate, but I was happy and I had a lot of fun. I really enjoyed meeting Cooper and competing against him, and really look forward to next season. Thanks, everyone.